Hey guys, how's it going? Completely different video than what's you're probably used to. If you're new here, this is normally a channel where I talk about colognes and perfumes and stuff like that. I'm doing something completely different today because I want to. That's the only reason why. So, might not appeal to everybody, but I thought that some people would find this fun. Today I'm going to talk about every single Rush album and give you like my favorite song from them. Rush is my favorite band. They have been my favorite band since I was 12 years old and I heard Tom Sawyer on the radio and I said, "What the hell is that? That is so unique. I've never heard anything like that." Went and listened to them and I was hooked ever since. So, very interesting topic, not what you're probably used to here, but I'm doing it anyways. I hope that if you're a Rush fan, you enjoy this and then you let me know in the comments what your favorite albums and songs are. I don't know why I decided to do this. I haven't even been listening to Rush a lot lately, but I just had a hankering. So anyways, start at the first one. 1974 is Rush, their self-titled debut. This album sounds a lot like a Led Zeppelin kind of clone. I don't think it's a bad album. I don't think it's terrible. I don't think it's that amazing. There's nothing really that amazing about it. It does, like I said, sound a lot like many other kind of hard rock bands from that era. And they thankfully kind of made their own sound. John Rutsey is on this album playing drums, not Neil Peart. He didn't show up until the next album. I like this album. There are some unique things about it. For one, like Alex Lifeson can rip on the guitar. From listening to this album, you can tell right away that these guys have chops. I don't think John Rutsey's actually, quite honestly, the greatest drummer ever, but he serves his purpose. Geddy Lee's bass lines are great, and his voice is insane. I mean, this is when he used to shriek, so I think that might have, I don't know if that turned people off back then. Certainly a lot of people I know that listen to those older Rush albums don't like that. I loved it. So I like that album. It's not the greatest thing. It's not something I listen to all the time, but I wouldn't say that it's like not an enjoyable experience to listen to it. My favorite song on that album is Working Man. I think that's a lot of people's. So moving on to 1975, we have Fly By Night, where Neil Peart joins the band. John Rutsey didn't want to tour, I think, because of diabetes at the time. I'm not exactly sure if that was the reason why. But anyways, Neil comes in. Holy shit, what a good drummer. The album honestly has a lot of the same sound as before, where it's kind of hard rock, but there's some progressive influences that start leaking in, probably because of Neil. Neil's an amazing lyricist, so his very thoughtful and poetic lyrics start coming through. They were singing about like banging chicks and shit like that in the previous album. This one, they start talking more philosophical things. There's some science fiction and fantasy stuff like Rivendell. Lord of the Rings stuff comes in. By Tour and the Snow Dog is an 8-minute piece of music. They're starting to get there, but I think the core sound is still hard rock. Really do like this album. I think it's actually underrated. Again, it's not one of their greatest albums. They're still very green in this. But whenever I go back and listen to this, I think I always forget about this one. It's actually pretty good. There's a lot of good songs on it. I think my favorite song is actually Anthem, which I believe is the opening number. It's just a great tune that opens up in 7/8, so they start doing the mixed meter stuff. Just a good album and good tune. Next we have 1975 as well, Caress of Steel, which was like they're going down the tubes tour because they decided to put out an album the same year. They started to go pretty far into the science fiction fantasy route, the progressiveness. Not like crazy time signatures yet, or like any keyboards really, but they started to get really out there with really long songs and things like that. This album's not very good. I know that most people consider this one of the worst Rush albums, and I just have to as well. I don't really care for the two long songs, the Fountain of Limneth, which has some very cool sections, but overall I think it's a little bit too long in the tooth. And the Necromancer, while it has some really cool like hard rock stuff in it, I think it's just like they were like getting a little carried away, a little crazy with that stuff, and they weren't as refined yet to handle that kind of thing. I think I'm going bald, which is kind of a funny tune, but it's kind of a whatever. Lakeside Park is a good tune. I like that one. I don't love it. So this album I'm not very fond of, but I think Lakeside Park is probably my favorite album or favorite song. Next we have 2112. The record label basically gave them one more shot to make an album, and this is what they put out, and it fucking blew everybody's minds. Like it put them on the map. If they didn't put this album out, I don't think they would be around like they like their legacy is. This is an epic album. They definitely start going into the science fiction route and things like that. Progressive rock starts coming in a little bit, but still no keyboards yet, really. Very interesting album. 2112 itself is a great tune. Definitely my favorite song on the album. An epic piece of music with a really good story to it. They think they really had something good going here. You'll have to excuse me. I got a glass of water because I'm talking a lot. However, besides 2112, I think my favorite song on this album is Tears, which is kind of a little bit cheesy. It's kind of a ballad. It's a very somber kind of ballad. It is a little cheesy, but I always like that song. Always was a little bit touching to me. If you've never heard Tears, because a lot of people haven't heard a lot of the other songs on 2112, there are actually most of the songs on this are good. Twilight Zone is an excellent tune. Just 2112 is like the one that's most popular. So I like 2112. It's a good album. Next we have, wow, I'm almost forgetting a little bit. That was 1976. 77 would be A Farewell to Kings. A Farewell to Kings, I like this album a lot. When I first started listening to Rush, this was one I listened to almost the most, I would say, because of it. They really started to get into the progressive rock side with adding keyboards and weird time signatures and longer songs and things like that. Getting really out there. Really enjoy this. I don't like it as much anymore because this is going to sound controversial. I don't think that they were quite as refined on this album. I think they were still even green a little bit. And they were changing genres a lot. We're still coming into their skin, so to speak. But I still like the album. A Farewell to Kings is my favorite song off the album. I love the guitar solo section where it's going between 7/8 and 5/8, and it's got that cool drum and bass thing going. That's a great tune. Madrigal, I'm not a big fan of that song, to be honest. Xanadu, obviously, is on this album. This is going to be the most controversial thing I've ever said. I'm not a big fan of Xanadu. I really do enjoy sections of it, but the whole thing, it's just not my favorite. But maybe it's yours, and that's fine. So, Farewell to Kings is a good album. Next we have in 1978, we have Hemispheres, and good Lord, if I forget an album, I will deserve and definitely take whatever criticism I get. But 78 is Hemispheres, which is really the height of their progressive craziness. Hemispheres is, and I should backtrack. Sorry, I'm getting a little distracted. On the previous album, Cygnus X1, I can't miss that one. That's a good tune as well. We have Hemispheres, which is an 18-minute epic tune. We have Circumstances, The Trees, and La Via Strangiato. I like all of these songs, so I enjoy this album quite a bit. I think Hemispheres is a little bit too long. There's some repetitiveness in that, but there are some really cool progressive figures in that tune that I like, and I think the story is pretty unique. La Via Strangiato, I think, is an amazing, amazing instrumental piece of music. I think it's very creative. I think that Circumstances is kind of cool. I don't love that tune. The changing meters are cool, but it's a little, I don't know. And The Trees is an excellent song. I love The Trees. That's, to me, honestly, The Trees, for their shorter songs, is like the pinnacle of progressive Rush. Really interesting kind of socio-fantasy kind of story with changing time signatures and just all-around cool instrumental playing. Then we go to 80, which is Permanent Waves. And Permanent Waves is, they start to tone it back and do a little bit more radio-friendly kind of stuff. Geddy lowers his singing range, probably because he was blowing his voice out. But they still maintain their core progressive values. That's a weird way to put it, right? Progressive sense of musicality is probably a better way to say it. Free Will, The Spirit of Radio, Entre Nous, Jacob's Ladder. What's the other song I'm forgetting? I can't remember. It's a ballad that's actually quite pretty. I love every song on this album. I think this is one of their best albums. It's short. Not all the songs are super short, but they're shorter. It's accessible, but they have just a wonderful progressive sound. It's very unique. Like, I can't describe this the way it sounds. It's a very unique progressive style. My favorite song on this album is Entre Nous, which is probably not what you were expecting, but something about that song is always uplifting and happy, and still has that progressive sound that I liked. So moving on to 1981, which is Moving Pictures, their most famous album. Everybody knows this. It's almost a perfect album. I don't think it's perfect because I'm honestly not the biggest fan of the song Vital Signs. It's kind of like they could have put it on Signals. I don't know what the deal was there. I don't really care for that song too much. But every other song is pretty much a masterpiece. What needs to be said about this? This is one of the greatest albums ever made. I think my favorite song is The Camera Eye. It's normally been one of my top Rush songs ever, but every song on this album is pretty much gold. Next, we have Signals, which is 1982, where they started to get more into the new wave sound, incorporate more keyboards. People like this one a little less, but to be honest with you, I like almost every song on this album. It's got a little bit of a different style to it, but it's still got the rock edge and the progressive edge. And I would say that my favorite song on this is Losing It, which is a very beautiful song. It has that cool violin solo in it. I think Ben Mink played the violin on the album. It's got that 11/8 time signature in the background during that. It's very cool. So I like this album. 84, we have Grace Under Pressure, and I'm sorry that this is going long, but I want to do it justice. 84 is Grace Under Pressure, definitely starting to push more into the new wave. This is more of like a new wave kind of album, starting to get a little bit into the synth pop. There's still some unique kind of things on this. I'm not the biggest fan of this album because the style doesn't really speak to me that much. It still sounds like Rush to me, but the style that they're going for, I'm not the biggest fan of, which I like, which is going to be weird because Power Windows I really like, which is more synthy. But for some reason, that new wave kind of sound, I'm not the biggest fan of. So there are a lot of songs on this album that I don't really care about too much. I actually kind of like the song Red Lenses, which is a little funky. My favorite song is Between the Wheels, which has that heavy, hard sound to it. And especially when they played it in recent years, live, when they got a little more of a hard rock sound, that song kicks fucking ass. So that's that. 85 is Power Windows. They went totally synthy with this one, synth pop kind of deal. Although I gotta be honest, even though I said I didn't like the last one as much as others, I think this is their most mature songwriting, some of it at least. The songs are incredibly well written. They are very heavily dominated by keyboards, and they have that 80s sound to them. So I think that this might not appeal to some people. And this is probably a turning point where if you were to look back at their first album and compare it to this, you would say, holy shit, they could not be more different now than they were. But I think that the songs are so well written, the lyrics are so thoughtful, they make you think, the music is so well constructed. Even though it's got that sound that I wouldn't listen to from another band probably in that era, Rush did it really fucking well. And that's something I do want to say really quick, even though I know that, again, this is going on very long. But Rush always changed their style to meet the needs of what was happening at the time period. And I thought that's very an interesting thing that they did, a very smart thing so that they would probably remain relevant in radio play and stuff like that. But they never sold out. They never said, oh, well, it's synth time, so we're just a total synth band. They always kept their personal style. Their personal touch. That's why I enjoy this album, even though it's going synthy, because it's got that incredible, amazing Rush touch. My favorite song on this album is Middletown Dreams. I don't know why. I've always loved that song. Okay. After Power Windows is Hold Your Fire, which I believe is 1987. This is often considered one of their weakest albums. I think I would agree with that. They went even harder with the synthy stuff. The guitars are very thin sounding on this album. Keyboards are very prominent. And there are a lot of clunkers, like Tyshawn fucking sucks, I'm sorry. Geddy Lee even said that he thinks that's the worst song they've ever made. There's a lot of clunkers. There's still some cool things, like Turn the Page got like an insane bass line in it. Force 10 is pretty rockin'. So there's some cool things. Force 10 is my favorite song on this album, probably for a lot of people. Not a big fan of this album, though. There's a lot that I would never listen to. And next, going into 1989, we have Presto, where they pulled back that synthy sound. I would actually describe this as a little bit more of like an adult contemporary album. Again, with the Rush touch on it, though. There's some rock elements and weird, unique things, but kind of like an adult contemporary kind of album. And very clean sounding still. I believe they switched producers for this. Rupert Hines, I think was his name. I'm not positive. I actually think he just passed away recently. Different sound, a little cleaner. A lot of people don't like this one. I can understand that. There's some clunkers on this album. Presto, I still think is a great song, even though it's not heavy or anything like that. Actually, my favorite song on this album is Available Light. If you never heard that one, it's amazing. I suggest you listen to that. And also The Pass is on this album, which is a very powerful, beautiful song. So I like that song as well. Next, we go into 1991, which is, and I'm going to skip the live ones, by the way. Show of Hands would be like 88 or something like that. 91 is Roll the Bones. Still clean sounding, still has a little bit of that synthiness, but they start going a little funky. Got a little bit of that like New Jack Swing kind of feel to it, which was very popular in the time period. Roll of Bones is kind of goofy. That's the best way I would describe this album. Is it's a little cheesy. It's got some cool moments in it, but it's a little cheesy. Like the rapping thing is funny, but it's a little cheesy. My favorite song from this album is called Nerotica. Very underrated Rush song that not a lot of people listen to. Very good song. Okay album. It's not one of my favorites, but it's got some good moments. Then we go to 1993, which is Counterparts. Total switch in sound. Total different production. Total switch in sound. You can tell they're channeling the grunge of the era. They're hard. It's hard rock. It's still got the progressiveness though. You can hear some organs in the background, some time signature changes and stuff, but really heavy. Fucking amazing album. It's one of my favorite Rush albums. I love the sound on this album. There are some weird moments, like I don't know. There's just there's a couple tunes that aren't the greatest, but man, there are some amazing songs on this album. I think I'm not positive, but I'm pretty sure that this album opens with the song "Animate," with Neil clicking his sticks and counting the tune off. I think that's how the album opens. That was a really smart way for them to be like, we're changing. So 1996, we have, what song do we have? Oh, by the way, if I didn't say my favorite song on this one, my favorite song is probably, I don't know. It's hard to say. Probably Between the Sun and Moon, or maybe Cold Fire. But Nobody's Hero is a good song too. It's hard to pick. Anyways, 1996 is Test for Echo. Very similar sound. They added a little bit more keyboards back in, but a very similar hard kind of rock sound. I'm not actually a big fan of this album. I don't think it's one of their greatest. There's a couple tunes that are really good on this, like Virtuality, Time and Motion, Test for Echo. Totem is actually a pretty good song too that I like, but there's some other ones like Dog Ears, which kind of suck. Resist is a good, so there are some good songs on here, but there are some others that I will never listen to ever. So it's okay. Let me take another sip. And then tragedy unfortunately strikes Neil, and they take a hiatus because, well, I think they actually broke up, really. Neil's wife and his daughter died. So I think they were pretty much done, and then they came back, thankfully, in 2002. God, I hope I'm not missing one in between there, to record Vapor Trails, which not a lot of people like, but I think that's one of my favorite Rush albums. It's got this unique progressive sound to it without using keyboards. It's got that Rush sound to it, but it's still heavy. But then Alex starts introducing some unique things like mandolin and stuff. I think he played mandolin in a couple of the previous albums, but it becomes more in the forefront, some acoustic guitars. It's got a very unique sound to it. There are some happy-go-lucky songs. Obviously, we all know that when this album came out, it had horrible production value. It was like really compressed and kind of shitty sounding. They've remixed it, and I think the remix is pretty decent. It doesn't like fix it completely, but it's the remix is the one to listen to. My favorite song on this is Freeze. That is a cool song, and that's a hard song to play, by the way. So then I'm actually going to skip Feedback. I'm sorry. I don't really listen to that one. I apologize. Feedback came out in 2004, I think, and they did covers of other people's songs. But I don't listen to that one. Because I don't really care for all the songs on it. That's just why. Geez, what comes after that? Snakes and Arrows, 2007, I think. Snakes and Arrows is actually it's one of my least favorite ones. This was the first Rush album that I was like, when I was aware of them, to go buy. So I was, like anticipating the release of it. This was the first one, so I was very, very excited to listen to it. And I actually got the album before it came out because somebody I knew happened to get it like a couple weeks before it came out. So that was crazy. But I was disappointed. I'm sorry. I know a lot of people like some of the songs in this one. Far Cry is a pretty good tune. Faithless is pretty cool. The Way the Wind Blows is okay. But they're okay. I think Far Cry is a great tune. I think they did a really good job with that. I don't really like any of the other songs. And this has a problem with it. This album, in my opinion, a lot of the songs are slower or medium tempo, slow to medium tempo. A lot of the songs have the same tempo. And that kind of gets boring on my ears after listening to the album. If I sit down and listen to it, I start to get kind of bored. The tempo is the same for a lot of the songs. I don't know if they realized that or if the producer didn't realize. I think, I can't remember the guy's name who produced it. He's a good producer, but I don't like this one that much. I was quite a bit disappointed. So then fast forward, after seeing them a bunch of times and everything, 2012, we have their final album, which is Clockwork Angels, which, holy shit, on a shingle, I was excited for this album because they said it was going to be a concept album. I thought, holy fucking shit, are you kidding me? This is amazing. They're going to put out a fucking concept album in 2012? Get out of here. I was very excited. I don't really care for this album. Oh man, that's going to get me in trouble with some people. I know people really, really, really like this album. But this album has a problem. Well, first I'll say the things I like about it. There are a couple songs on this album that I really enjoy that I think they get heavy with this album. They sound great for how old they are when they put this out. It sounds fresh to me. Headlong Flight is an amazing tune. That song kicks ass. They put some time signature changes in here if you are keeping up on that stuff, but they stick to their heavy rock style, but they do the concept thing. The concept thing is interesting. It's not like too on the nose, the astonishing, and yeah, I think they did a good job with that. So those are the things I like. I like BU2B a little bit. I like Caravan. I think Caravan's a good song. But this is just my opinion. Don't hate me. If you like it, that's totally fine. I find this has a lot of the problems that their previous album does, is that a lot of the songs just are kind of the same tempo. I don't find a lot of variety. And I know that they were going for more of a hard rock feel, and I dig it. But lots of like pentatonic-y kind of sounding stuff, like a lot of songs. Now, not everything, of course, but I'm missing the song that was like in a major key or something like that, like Vapor Trails. Those are just my criticisms. I think that Clockwork Angels is probably the best song, and that's probably my favorite song on the album. It's a good tune, but all the songs on this album I like. The ones that I like. I don't love them. Like, I like the song Clockwork Angels. I don't love it. I like the song Caravan. I don't love it. And that's unfortunate because it's their last album. But I don't hate it. I'm just not crazy about it. I don't find myself listening to that one too much. But some people really enjoy it, and that's cool. That's their last album. They retired. Neil unfortunately passed away this year. So the Rush is no more, but we will always have their music. Hopefully Alex or Getty will do something, Getty put out his book, which is cool, but hopefully they'll get back to playing music. I mean, if not, no big deal, because I think they deserve to retire after 40-something years, But if they do something, I'll definitely be checking it out. Anyways, I'm sorry, this is incredibly long. I did not intend for it to be over 20 fucking minutes long, but like I said, I had to do it justice and really give you my thoughts. If you've made it to the end, I can't believe you, but thank you for watching. As always, everybody, be well. Let me know what your favorite albums and tunes are. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Peace out.